Hello and welcome to Restoring Our American Republic. I'm Chuck Benoit with The Nature of Things, where we are realigning God, government, and natural law so that we might restore our American Republic. Please follow us on this Facebook page or check us out on YouTube at Restoring Our American Republic -ROAR. And if you'd like to take part in the narrative, simply post your comments and we'll be happy to address them whenever they are relevant to our discussion. You can help us be a voice here locally by liking and sharing this program. And please note as well that we're going to be expanding our live stream to other venues as well very, very soon. So regarding the war in the Middle East, Israel's attack on Iran was not the start of this war, although it certainly was an escalation of it. Iran swore to eliminate Israel and has been nipping at the edges of that with Hamas and other terrorist groups. But their nuclear program is what they intend to use for the complete annihilation of the Israeli country and their people. The major difference in the manner of war tactics attacking them is the attacking of military versus the attacking of civilian targets. We're seeing in the Israel-Iran crisis, it's a clear example of the violation of natural law, because it is natural to be willing to defend yourself, your person, or your nation, but it's not natural to attack unarmed citizens and those who are not attacking you. The Iranian regime is not only the enemy of Israel, but it's also the enemy of the Iranian people. And from our perspective, our own Declaration of Independence tells us that the purpose of government is to secure our God-given rights. And of course, the Iranian government is not doing that for their people. But our declaration goes on to say that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, these helping us with our personal inalienable rights, that it's the right of the people to alter or abolish it. And I would suggest to the Iranian people that it might be time for them to address that issue. Rise up and be your own savior, if you will, your own person who's willing to get to the next thing, to move on and to eliminate this destructive regime. And with that, I'd like to bring on my good friend, Mike Levine. Mike, how we doing this morning?
Everything is beautiful, Chuck.
In its own way. So, you got any comments on our opening salvo here or what?
You know, this is complicated, Chuck.
Yes, it is.
It's really complicated. So, for example, I'm going to look at this from the American point of view. Which is being fiercely debated. So, let's start off by how informed was Donald Trump before Benjamin Netanyahu, who I revere. Over the course of my life, I've always thought Benjamin Netanyahu is one of the strongest leaders in the world. So I've always had a high respect for Benjamin Netanyahu. But I also know that the deep state in the United States of America does not have the same agenda that Donald Trump has. So let's take a look at what happened there. Donald Trump came on the stage as the world peacemaker. He is on the record and every platform saying that he wants everyone to put their guns away, and he doesn't want to solve world problems with airstrikes, with violence. But that's not what Netanyahu chose to do. Netanyahu struck Iran, which I totally agree that I don't want a nuclear Iran, for sure. But after studying this for the number of days it's been going on, and I probably spend more time on this than I should, but my gut feeling is, Chuck, that Netanyahu chummed up with the deep state and circumvented Donald Trump and struck Iran against Donald Trump's not necessarily his knowledge, but his consent, Chuck. That would be my comment out of the box.
Well, I'm certainly willing to give you your assessment. I say it a little differently, but we don't need to get into that because, quite frankly, what we're really looking to do is to meet another good friend, Andy Dubois. Andy, I'd like to come in and say hi to you, bringing you on the stage here. How are we doing, Andy?
Doing well, Chuck. Thank you, Chuck and Mike, for inviting me here today. I'm excited to be here. I'm looking forward to this.
Super, super. Well, unless you have something to say about the Iranian war, we'll start talking about you.
Let's talk about me. It's one of my favorite topics.
Good, good, good. Well, you've been around the political scene here in Lake County area for quite a little while. I was wondering if you could kick us off with maybe a little history on where you've been and where you're heading.
Thank you, Chuck. Thank you so much. I got involved in the political arena back in 2009, as many of us have, with the Tea Party movement. And it was very exciting in the spring of 2009, and it resulted in the marches up in DC. There was a million plus folks that went up to DC, and my wife, Marie, was part of that, and she kind of lured me into the Tea Party movement. And soon after that, I became involved with the local Republican Party in my county, seeing that as an avenue to restore fiscal responsibility and constitutionally limited government and free market solutions. You know, I had the sense that our government was going in the wrong direction. And I thought that the solution would be to restore our republic to its original founding principles. And I'm still an advocate for that. I lean towards what our founders did. I find that to be an excellent glide path for our country. And it's worked for many years. You know, unfortunately, through time, it's become quite corrupt and rigged, I think, in many ways. I also got involved after the 2018 election here in Florida with the Republican Liberty Caucus. You know, I consider myself to be a citizen lobbyist, and I was looking for ways to take action to get folks that thought like I did, you know, folks that believed in economic freedom, personal liberty, limited government, you know, and free market solutions to the problems that we have in our country. I was looking for folks like that to partner with, and I found quite a bit of activity within what is called the Republican Liberty Caucus. It's a national organization. We have a state chapter, a pretty strong state chapter here in Florida. We also have a county chapter. I've been involved with the local Lake Sumter chapter here in Lake County. And what these folks do, they're considered to be the conscience of the Republican Party in the sense that they refer to our liberty principles, you know, our founding principles. You know, the primary objective of government is to secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and more essentially to our posterity. And they do that in a couple of different ways. They get actively involved in legislation. They vet bills that are being filed and moved through the committee process every session, every year. And we have an event called Lobby Days where the members of the Republican Liberty Caucus, in fact, anyone like-minded, can participate in that and meet up in Tallahassee and lobby for the bills that we are supporting or opposing, you know, based on the liberty principles. And they also have an extensive process of vetting candidates. And there's a committee, there's a group of members in local communities, local chapters, regional organization within the Liberty Caucus that vet Republican candidates. And they also support those candidates financially. And they vet one Republican against the other in races. And we've had some success through the years that I've been there. And it's a lengthy process. There's many volunteers that are involved in that. Right now, there's estimated to be between 24 and 27 chapters in Florida. And we have our regional coordinators as well, and we vet these candidates as they file. And they seek our support. We endorse them. The ones that we do endorse, we promote, and we are able on a limited basis to provide them some financial support.
Mike, you were gonna. Mike, you wanted to talk a little bit about this too. I think, or the legislative process. Did you have a particular question for Andy?
I think Andy's doing a pretty good job covering it. Let's think. I just think I have a great respect for the Republican Liberty Caucus because they do the hard work of not only vetting legislation, as Andy pointed out, but vetting candidates. And of course, the candidate has to reach out to the Liberty Caucus and seeking the endorsement of what I consider to be probably the most conservative organization in the state of any significance, let's just say. But the thing I'd like to ask Andy is that, when we talk about liberty, let's get into the legislation that typically runs through the legislature in Florida. And, it just amazes me, Andy, how this is page after page after page of rules and regulations. Forget about the content of the bill itself. But when these things get published and you've got a 50-page bill, a 100-page bill or more, and the thing is just laden with rules and regulations. So would you address that, Andy, and let me know if you think, like for me personally, freedom means less regulation from the government, less of the government telling you what you have to do and how to comply with it. And I'd like you to just address because I personally believe that the barrage of rules and regulations is a deep part of the problem. Andy?
No, you're absolutely correct. There's, personally, I would like to see many bills filed to delete, to repeal laws, standing laws. Red flag laws are a classic example. There's regulations, bills that grow government, and those generally we oppose. And a vast majority of bills that are filed up there in the range from 2,000 to 3,000 bills per session, and there's maybe 1,000 that actually make it across the finish line. And, most of those bills are growing government. They're spending money. In each bill we look at, we try to figure out who's benefiting. Why is this being, what organization is benefiting from that? And the Florida legislature is riddled with, interests other than the good citizens of Florida. There's many organizations that want to limit competition so that they can grow their profits. And there's many of our electeds that side with them. And it's understandable in the sense that there's not enough citizen lobbyists going up there to get the ear of those electeds. You're right. And we've seen many bills that are like you said, 80, 90, 100 pages. And it's discouraging. It's difficult to sift through those and find value for the citizens.
And and if you don't mind, Chuck, you want to? Okay, go, Chuck.
Yeah, I was just going to say that not only are you involved in the legislative aspect of things, but you did mention that that there's ways that you'd like to get conservative people elected in certain offices. There was a program that you guys started just a little while back. I was wondering if you'd give us a little bit of information about that.
Well, we have a program underway to create a Freedom Caucus similar to what's in DC. You know, if we had a meaningful number of representatives in the House that would stick together and form a Freedom Caucus to where leadership in the House would have to satisfy those demands of this Freedom Caucus in order to get legislation passed, that would put us on the path to at least get folks that are liberty-minded in our state to be heard. You know, right now, the members of the legislature, whether it's on the House side or the Senate side, they are pretty much under the thumb of leadership. And in order for them to advance to committees or to get their appropriations for their districts approved in the budget, in order for that to happen, they're under the thumb of the speaker, or in the Senate side, under the thumb of the Senate president. And that's very discouraging to those folks that are liberty-minded, that are interested in reducing government, that are interested in getting government out of their way.
So you give me the impression that you feel like the success of the Republican Party in as much as taking over so much of our legislation has just simply allowed the Republican Party to act like the Democrat Party, just shove things down the throat of everybody. If you don't agree, you're out, kind of thing. So it's not a matter of a democratic form of getting things done, but an authoritarian kind of thing, a method of getting things done. Is that what you're trying to say?
Yeah, absolutely. It's not only in the legislative process, but it's in the candidate process as well. For example, you know, in our local Republican Party, we're constantly advised not to engage in primary races when you have more than one Republican running in a primary. You know, don't engage in that. We're not allowed to. It's discouraged at the county chapter level to do that. Although the leadership of the Republican Party picks their guy early on, funds their guy, gives their guy exposure throughout the district, state, whatever, and they through their campaign, you know, finance system, which is anything but transparent. You know, I know the Liberty Caucus has been seeking sunlight and transparency in the PACs, you know, that are used to fund these candidates. It's called dark money. And you basically have to be a forensic accountant to determine who is actually funding opposition research, opposition mailers, those type of things. So, you know, and the Republican Party and the leadership will pick their candidate early on, and they'll provide their candidate all the funding that they need to win a race, a primary race, especially when there's multiple Republicans running for one seat. So it's basically do as I say, not as I do. And when I say that the system is rigged, that's the candidate-wise, it's rigged against the good citizens of the state of Florida, and also legislatively in the House and in the Senate, it's rigged against getting liberty-minded bills passed.
Mike, I think I kind of stepped on you early on. Did you have a question or a comment you wanted to make?
I just want to agree with Andy, but I also want to point out, you know, that when people band together in groups, the purpose of banding together is to have more influence over the situation than other people, as Andy alluded to earlier. So what's going on all across our country, and I mean, I think it's basic human nature, and as nobody could speak better to it than you, Chuck, that we just have a tendency to want to have an unfair advantage. And we have as Andy pointed out, we want to minimize competition, which is just the opposite of what our economic system of free market capitalism is all about. So at the end of the day, you can start locally, and you can start with a trade association or a union or your chamber of commerce or whatever it is. And, basically, when those folks roll out legislative priorities, the purpose of the priority is to give that group, whatever their character is, an advantage over people who are not included in the group. And that is counter to free market competition. I could go, this is the root of what I oppose personally, and I've always opposed. And I could talk about it in more detail, but I know that we have limited time, and I'd like to, and I'm sure there are other things we want to talk about, but this collective overbearance against people who are just trying to make a living and compete in the marketplace, between the business and their customer, that should be the root, that should be the foundation of our economy, not these organizations who skew the economics in their favor, which typically results in a lot of unintended consequences, Chuck.
Yeah, so I'd like to kind of wrap this up a little bit, just to let people know that the Republican Liberty Caucus meets monthly, and they meet on the second Thursday of the month, 6:30, right, Mike? It's Andy, 6:30,
Yes.
and it's at the Main Street Bank.
It's on the second floor. It's 1515 East Highway 50 in Claremont on the second Thursday at 6:30 p.m. for anyone that is interested in getting involved in the legislation, either at the local city level, county level, or state level.
There are a few other topics we'd like to go ahead and touch base on. I think, Mike, you suggested something about Andy and his involvement with the school board. So do you want to kick us off with that?
Yeah, I mean, Andy and I, I probably met in probably 2010, and Andy and his wife Marie have just always been committed to being involved in what goes on in Lake County schools. So I'd really like to hear Andy's assessment on where we are, and try, because I know that Andy can color in a lot of stuff and give us some perspective on the direction of Lake County schools. And I'd just like to begin that, kind of frame that up a little bit, because there was a time, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Andy, but when the Lake County School District hired Diane Cornegay to be the superintendent, that was a big shift, or expected shift for sure, in the direction that Lake County Schools was going. And if you wouldn't mind, Andy, and feel free to deviate off of that premise as you choose to, but let's kind of look at it, or at least that's what I'm looking at from that perspective. Where have we gone? What is the difference between Lake County Schools under Diane Cornegay compared to before?
Well, I think Diane has done an excellent job compared to where we were headed before. We were kind of at a low point debt-wise, and we were beholding to the state and the federal education system, which was declining. And Diane has done an excellent job, in my view, and she's sought out folks like myself and others for their opinions on issues, especially when we were confronted with the Common Core issues in our state that were just crammed down our throat by Charlie Crist and Barack Obama and the feds, and that influence is still lingering big time. I kudos to Governor DeSantis and his policies that have opened up school choice. I mean, that has helped us tremendously And, students can be funded, through the school choice program, and their parents can decide where they can go to school. They're not saddled with the government publics, the traditional public schools. They want to send their kids to a Christian school or a charter school or homeschool, even homeschooling. Those avenues, that competition has opened up. And I know, the public school system has had to react to that. They've had to react to that funding, moving elsewhere to the students. But so I think we're on a positive track. We made some great headway since Diane Cornegay has been superintendent. Also, there's some school board members that have done a terrific job in fiscal responsibility. I think of the work that member Bill Mathias has headed up. We were in tremendous debt, and that debt is significantly diminished now. And we've been operating on this plan of pay as you go, which is adding some fiscal restraint to our school district, which happens to be the largest employer in Lake County, as it is in many districts. So there's
Exactly.
things happening.
Right. So let me ask you, you look at measuring tools. So how is the Lake County School District rated? And what are some of the obstacles or challenges that the Lake County School District faces in order to improve the standing of the Lake County School District? Andy?
Oh, what a difficult question. I don't know I don't know if it's A or B right now. I don't know. I haven't been engaged as much as I used to be. But I do know, for example, that the state has a proprietary grading system. Okay, and it makes our school system, grading system, look better than it actually is when it's compared to other states, across the country. And I don't know the solution to that, other than to focus on curriculum that has been, in my view, long established and not focused on the newer curriculum, social emotional learning. Like I said earlier, Common Core set us way, way back. I mean, we had an education system in this country for more than 150 years that was tried, true, proven, upgrading student academic accreditation tremendously. And it's been a long march by others to try something new, and that, as far as I'm concerned, the tried and true stuff historically was the best. And for us to just adopt and do new curriculum just because it's new and abandon the old historical tried and true, has not served us well. And I think it reflects on much in our education system, across the country. And this drive to drive all the students through a government-sponsored college system that is incredibly expensive with very little value. All that does is that's a pipeline, to put kids through college-ready stuff, and they come out with massive amount of debts. And again, the federal government has gotten involved in funding tuition programs. I mean, who's benefiting? I don't believe it's the students. I don't believe it's the parents. That's my view. That's probably in a pretty long, extended answer, Mike.
Well, that's great, Andy. I really appreciate you addressing it. Chuck?
Yeah, so we're kind of coming up on the end of our time, but I did want to just mention that you've talked a little about some successes. You've talked a little bit about some discouraging aspects. what keeps you motivated, and what gives you a foundation that keeps you from getting too anxious? Is there a spiritual component in Andy Dubois, or just like to expand on that for just a few minutes?
Yes, it's as many of my friends have experienced. You know, the older I get, the more I seek to know, to learn. And what I've experienced basically through the political process, through aging, and what's going on in our country and the world is that there's a spiritual battle taking place. You know, it's good versus evil, and on so many different fronts, whether it's in the schools, whether it's in the state government, the federal government. There's forces that I consider to be, you know, less than good that are gaining power, and then there's also the long established principles that are to good, you know. And I'm an advocate for the Christian traditions. You know, I find much peace personally in aligning myself with the Christian traditions and abiding by those principles. You know, we've got a book which I only know a sliver of it. I've just started reading it. You know, the Bible, and there's the Ten Commandments. There's fundamental things that also Chuck has made me aware of the essence of natural law. You know, and nature's God, and those things I find truth in, and I try to align accordingly, and it gives me peace because this is a struggle that's been occurring in mankind from day one, from the fall. There was creation, then there was the fall, and we have an opportunity for redemption and ultimately glorification. And I'm on that journey, and I have so many people that I've met, you know, through my experiences in the last 25 years that align with that. And that's why I keep showing up. That's why I keep showing up. That's why it's a concern for me, because I've got a great fellowship that I've found, you know, on this journey. Thank you for asking, Chuck.
Sure.
Chuck?
Okay, well, I guess we can kind of make this a wrap. Thank you very much, all of you who have been watching so faithfully. Thanks, Debbie and June, for checking in, as well as others. Hopefully we made it through without any hitches in your and what you're seeing there on your Facebook page. We'll be here Thursday at 11 to do this all over again, and with a special guest as well. Thanks so much for listening, and God bless.